Alright guys, let's go ahead and get this ball rolling. Today, we're gonna be taking a look at Barry the Bear here, Mr. Kumadori, as we've been calling him, and get into posing, which finally, right, we've done a ton of work on this guy. I guess I should go ahead and turn on live boolean real quick, just so you know some of this stuff makes a little bit more sense and we don't have additive geometry where there should be some subtractions. But yes. So I've gone ahead and done all the boring stuff that I promised that I would do. So a lot of the repetitive boolean subtractions, as well as, let's see here if I can grab a quick example, going through these and, maybe not this one. Maybe we did miss one. It looks like we might have. Going through these ropes and the such. Oh, no, we just got a duplicated piece. We're good. So going through these ropes and such and getting some subdivision levels in here, which is going to make the posing process a lot easier. So let me just make sure that I don't have any other duplicates there. It doesn't look like I do. Just one. So yeah, a lot of that repetitive stuff that I didn't want to take the time to do on stream just because I knew I could do it a lot faster in my own time. So I went ahead and did that. I gave him some quick claws on here. We're probably going to swap or not swap the hands, but change them up quite a bit once we get into posing here. Let me go ahead and show you. I did a quick little armature pose. So in ZBrush, they have these little mannequins that you can work with. If you guys aren't familiar with these, you can come up into your light box, go under Tool, or I'm sorry, it should just be under Project down here, Mannequin. Double click, open up that folder, and grab one of these mannequins that you want to work with. There's some interesting stuff in here made out of these mannequin armatures. I just, I think, grabbed this one right here, and then I went into posing, and then I added an extra Z sphere up top on the head, just so that I could indicate where he was looking. So this is kind of the pose that I was playing around with. Let me turn on perspective in here, maybe give it a little bit more life. So it's a little bit of a kind of leaping and leaning in pose as he's about to bring this hammer through. I'm not sure if I'll end up changing the angle of the arms a little bit to be raised a little bit higher, so it maybe looks like the hammer's coming more down. But yeah, this is the initial pose that I kind of worked with really quick. These armatures are great for just kind of playing around with poses really quick and getting an idea of balance and that sort of thing. So like I said, light box, mannequins down there at the bottom, and just pop one open and it'll be in an A or T pose for you, and then you can mess with it from there. So yeah, that's what we're going to be aiming towards today. So let me go ahead and hide our mannequin boy, and we can start thinking about how we want to tackle this. What's going on, Craig? Welcome to the stream. Glad to see you again. And welcome everybody else that's kind of popping in here real quick. So like I said, how do we want to tackle this? Well, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in posing, a lot of pre-work and pre-planning, and some of that I've done here. I've kind of blocked out some colors on a lot of this, and some of it I'm not super thrilled about, and that's fine. We can correct a lot of that as we go through. But some of the stuff here, I'm just gonna make sure that all these parts and pieces that are kind of placeholders or extra pieces, I just want to completely delete those, get rid of them altogether. And I want to make sure that my groups here are set up correctly. So there's just one I want to tweak real quick, which is this piece here. So now all my pieces for the hammer are tucked up under here. And if you guys are familiar with the new features, if you are using the 3D Gizmo tool, there is this little transpose all selected subtools. You can do a little bit of some selection with that. But the higher you get in poly count, we're currently at 42 million, you can see up here. It's pretty high, and if you're wanting to transpose, let's say, all the subtools in this hammer, it can be a little finicky sometimes, especially if you're trying to transpose live booleans. So what I have found is the better tool for kind of posing and just moving some stuff around in general is to use the original method, the transpose master tool under Z plugin. We're working again with 42 million subtools here, so it might be a little finicky. Luckily, we do have a lot of low subdivision levels for this. Currently, it's saying it's giving me an error, and essentially that error, I believe, it's essentially saying some of my subtools are named the same. So the way we can get rid of that, real quick, let me resave this file. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Anubis Master says, yo, what up, my folly? What's going on, Anubis? Welcome to the stream. Let's go ahead and just close ZBrush, and we will go ahead and reopen that and see if we can get that little error to correct. So again, we're working with a lot of polys there, so it might take a little bit of time to even get into Transpose Master, but because we do have those lower subdivs for mostly everything, we should be good here. So let's let me find that file, that Z tool, ZBrush number 11. Do you have an idea how I can remove matte caps that are not ZBrush standard? I just threw them in the matte caps, used in a tutorial into the startup folder, and now I don't know which are which. If you go into your file system where you have ZBrush installed, you said you threw them in the startup folder. Yeah, you should just be able to delete the ones that you don't want. They should be named accordingly. I won't pop open my install location right now, but in there the names should, so like my Follygon matte black and white material, that should be in my Z material Z startup folder, and I should be able to just simply delete that. But if you're not sure which are which, I would open up ZBrush and find the material that you want to remove specifically, and go ahead and delete that while you have the file system open up on your screen as well. And then after you close ZBrush and restart it, the material should be gone from your installation. Or maybe don't even delete it, maybe just move it somewhere else so that you have it for later. Do you know how to animate? Yeah, I used to do a bunch of animation back in the day. Let's do some transpose master here. If we get another error, we might have a little bit of some downtime where I can kind of go through my subtools and rename. So you're seeing this hashtag, or I'm sorry, wow, that was very 2017 millennial of me. You know, # sub T name. So we're getting a little error there. What I need to do is I just need to be a good boy and go through my subtools and do some name cleanup. So we might be here for a couple minutes as I do that. So we'll just go through these real quick. And luckily for me, Control R is set to rename. So eyebrows. So I can just kind of quickly go through these. I don't need, I'm just using my G key, which is my solo key, to solo mode all that geometry. But yeah, let me keep going through these. So we got Tungu, whoops, wrong key there. Control R for me, and then tongue. And you guys will have to excuse my terrible spelling on some of these as we get down into them. So mouth junk. What do we got here? We got our traps. We can just call this torso. A little bit of everything in there. Not sure what this piece is. Okay, so bottom of the belly. Whoops. We'll just say bottom belly or bottom bell. Arms here. And again, we're just doing this so that transpose master is gonna actually work for us. So when using transpose master, it gets really confused when you have subtools named the same thing, because essentially what happens at the end of the process, after you're done posing or moving geometry, it goes back through all of those subtools and applies those changes to those subtools in your list over here. And then if you have some stuff that's named the same, obviously it's gonna get a little confused there. So we got some hands here. I think some claws here, which are new. And again, just going through all of these. Back in the day, how old are you? 92. Back in the day, how old are you? 92. I'm not sure what that means. He's a Time Lord. Oh, back in the day. Oh, I said back in the day. Back in the day, I used to do a lot of animation. Yes, yes. Why don't you go ahead and guess how old I am? I'll give you a hint. I'm a little bit older than 14. That's not true. We'll call these legs and toeses, and we're gonna have to get a little creative with here. So when I'm working through these subtools, I don't even care about names as I'm going through. It doesn't even matter. The only time I really name stuff is closer to the end of the process for something like this with subtool transpose master problems, or if I'm exporting multiple OBJs for print or something like that. So we'll just say plate front, and see, this is when it gets a little convoluted, right? Trim bottom front. So actually, let's do this instead. Let's just merge on down. I don't have subtools for these. I do have some nice clean polygroups, so that does make that a little bit easier. That makes me happy. It's always good to have some nice clean polygroups. This one does have, so Control R, plate back. Was it 3D animation? Yes, I was doing a lot of 3D animation back in the day, as I said. Jack Hartness. I'm not familiar with Jack Hartness. I'll have to look him up. You guys can keep guessing, but you know, maybe I shouldn't tell you. Now it's more of a game. Maybe we can keep this going for a while. Oh man. These are some good guesses. We got 24, 32. Oh, Jack Harkness from Doctor Who. I'm sorry. I don't really watch Doctor Who a ton, so I've probably only seen less than 10 episodes. It was more of the older stuff than any of the newer stuff, and it's been a while. Back in the day, you know, since I've seen any of that. Oh man. So we got rope back, plate side, and I do want the trim here on this as well, so we'll just merge those down. 69, good guess, good guess. Maybe closer than some of the other guesses. And we got some pantaloons down here. Now we looked up what the name of those were called, and now I'm going to forget in the spur of the moment. Oh man, I feel so bad for forgetting what those are called. I always want to say greaves, but I know that's not correct. Shoulder trim and man, we have I think, what is it, 94 subtools here, so I apologize for that. Shoulder rope 1. And then it's a problem of finding where all these are, right? Shoulder rope 4. Some of these are not retopoed as well, which is not a problem. They're so small and insignificant that it won't really matter. 42, 37. On the subject of animation, have any tips on animating anthro faces? So I assume anthropomorphic faces, kind of like my character here. Have any tips? What is tips in regard to what specifically? For anthropomorphic faces. Yeah, I don't know. Not off the top of my head. I'm not entirely sure what you're looking for in terms of tips either. If it's if you're struggling with rigging or something, there's a ton of great free tutorials on YouTube for those. Let's just call this body plate. I don't know. Like I said, it doesn't really rope 4 trim. It doesn't really matter. As long as they are different. And let's change our quick save, as we do on occasion while we're streaming, just so we don't get super annoyed. And this is when it gets a little bit more convoluted, as I have some subtraction pieces in here. So if I turn on live boolean, you can see how that operates a little bit differently instead of having that additive geometry in there. So I'm going to call this rope 4 trim, as that piece has been classified as rope 4 now, and just making sure that we don't name anything the same. Again, the convoluted stuff here. Rope 4 trim 3, as long as it's different. 1, 2. I can honestly merge these together since they're both serving the same purpose there. And we can look at all this. This is the boring stuff that I wanted to avoid for the stream. I tried to do all the extra boring stuff like the booleans and all that, and here we are naming some subtools. So this is a lot of fun. How to make the expressions look right. Like I deform an expression in ZBrush, then I create the drivers for it and use shape keys or shape tweens or whatever. How to make the expression look right. Time, practice. Lots of time, lots of practice. I think that's such a multi-tiered question that there's no one thing that I could say to make a face or an expression look right. Look at references. Look at lots of references. If it's an anthropomorphic character, look up other people's drawings online if you're looking for like an anthropomorphic bear like we have here. Maybe reference some of that, or just reference human characters or images of human. Look up like angry man, sad woman, whatever you need, and then reference those and go from there. Wish you could hang around, but you gotta go. No worries, HUD boy. We're always glad for the HUD boy to stop in, even if it's just for a little bit. All right, back to naming a bunch of garbage. I'm just typing bool for boolean because I don't even want to type out the entire word, just to save a little more time. what should we call this guy? Front plate. Oh man, oh man, oh man. We got a lot of armor here, don't we, guys? Let's call this one, what did we call the previous? We called it just back trim. I think that's fine. Front trim. Front boolean. Side plate bottom. And side trim bottom. Side boolean. Front plate mid. Sure. Sounds good. Whoops. Let me quick save real quick. I just pressed Control F, which is, I forget the name of this. It's like called Paint Stop or something like that. And well, it takes you into that mode, but I also filled the screen with this single color and material that I have here, which I don't want. So I can press my hotkey to clear my layer, or I can go up here into Layer Clear. I just wanted to make sure that I quick saved first because sometimes you can run into some big issues and jack up your whole scene, and we don't want that, especially after we just went through naming all that stuff. So rope front mid. I don't know if they're bolts or not, but I'm gonna call them bolts for the time being. Stick with the at least same naming convention. Typically what I do when I'm naming stuff, especially for 3D print, I won't say like right arm, right leg, left leg, because I want stuff to be organized typically alphabetically in my list of files. So I want the arms next to each other, I want the legs next to each other, I don't want all the rights next to each other and all the lefts next to each other. So I'll say arm right and then leg right, or arm left, leg left. Plate front, plate side. So now all the plate pieces will be next to each other if I were to export these. It just helps in organization a little bit. Bunch of garbage that I don't really care about. Ooh, let's see there. We got a lot of fishies at the bottom as well that we gotta name. Let's see here. Don't ask a ton of animation, walking, idle, etc. Save time and recycle some stuff for later. I know there's a lot of human IK. If you're using human IK in Maya or wherever, you can pull in a lot of animations that are already set up with human IK. I used to do a bunch of human IK stuff back in the day. Struggle with stylized characters like hazardous arts, if you're familiar. I am. While more realistic characters come out way better. Do you have any tips for stylization? Exaggeration and practice and time. I think similar to some other questions, you know, it's just it's a lot of time. Time is a fundamental of art and of anything almost. I wasn't able to make this character overnight, and the character here that I have is, you know, heavily stylized. It doesn't look like a realistic bear. Use lots of references. Like I mentioned for the animation, you can reference real people and try to exaggerate and push stuff and just try to continue to push those things and repeat those processes. But not only did this character, you know, take the amount of hours that I put into it to create, but it also took a lot of hours of work in the past to be able to get to the skill level to be able to do something like this. So again, it's just a lot of time and a lot of practice. I think time is something that's often overlooked. Time, not just spent on a singular project, but time over time. It's a really big deal, I think. And again, it's a fundamental. So grab lots of references and keep pushing at it, at least for the time being. That's all I can say. I don't know what your work looks like though, so. Stylization is more squinting your eyes and making the bigger things more prominent, so exaggeration, that could be something like that, with smaller things more smooth. Look at a lot of Disney films for their characters, stuff like that. I think there's some really good videos online from people that work at similar studios that can kind of give you some more tips than I can elaborate on in the span that we have here. But go ahead and check those out. John Troy Nickel, who is Hazardous Arts, as he is known online, he has some videos online talking about his work process. I think some free videos on YouTube, as well as his live stream. Him and his girlfriend Lena stream all the time. Go check out their stuff. They're great, and I'm sure they would love to give tips. I know they stream quite often, more so than I do, so definitely check out their stream. They're a couple of great people. Check out their work, ask them some questions, learn from as many people as you can, and again, just that time. Put in the time. Rope. Let's see. Helmet, rope, top. Helmet. Is that how you spell helmet? Am I spelling helmet? Is it E-T? It is, isn't it? Alright guys, I'm not crazy. Like I said, I apologize for any terrible, terrible spelling we have here. We'll call you the Moon Boy. Moon Screws. It's the first time I've ever written that in my entire life. Moon, we'll just call it Moon Base. Moon Base, damn, I didn't even mean to do that. We'll stick with it though. Helm screws, sure. Helm visor. I don't know what this is called, so I'm just going to call it a hood. And where are we on my subtools? A little lost there. Rope. Rope deltoid. Sure. Plate deltoid. And the trim for that, so let's merge those together. Boop boop. So much garbage, guys, but we are lowering our subtool count a little bit. We're concatenating a bunch of stuff here. Rope, what did I say? So rope delt 2, I guess, since we already did that one. Rope chin. Rope chin. Helm hood flap. That sounds right, right? Rope bicep. Ooh, this is a garbage piece, duplicated. Can get rid of that. Hey, we're you know what? We're cleaning up a lot of garbage as well, so this is good. Onto our hammer. There we go, guys. We're almost done. Only a few more here. I apologize again that this is pretty boring. You suggest using some underscores, or I'm sorry, you're not talking about my naming convention. You're talking about some image planes in the background to help with your creation of your 3D forms. 3/4 help me improve this understanding. American and European spellings are different, slightly on some words. Yes, I'm American, like armor, M-O-U-R, armor, or M-O-R. There's a lot of words like that. Color, color, however you're gonna spell it. This bear reminds me of a samurai from TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I could see that. I like it. I like it. Well, I'll take that as a compliment. I like TMNT. Maybe not so much the new movies, but I used to be obsessed with this old VHS I had of when the turtles go back into time to like the Edo period in Japan, and they actually put on samurai armor. So maybe that's the film you're thinking of. I love that. I love that movie. It's really good. Hammer handle. Hammer garbage. Hammer trim bottom. Didn't do that one. Let's do this. Sphere trim. Blah, 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 blah. Bunch of garbo here. What do we got here? What piece am I looking at? Ah, okay. How do you guys like this hammer? I think it turned out pretty cool. Let me turn off polyframe there. I'm not sure about the color scheme, but I do like the koi fish that we decided to go with for the trim. That's a little annoying. I'll tweak that here in a second. But yeah, I think the hammer turned out pretty sweet. I'm excited to start posing this guy, you know, once we name everything here, actually. What do we want to call this guy here? Hammer circles. Trim circles, sure. Hammer, I don't even know. Semi-circle garbage thing. I'm so out of names right. I'm so out of name right now. Hammer, what did I say? Semicircle trim, sure, whatever. Hammer spheres top. Not to get confused with the bottom one. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. We'll just call you Hammer or Hammerhead. These are the end plates, so hammer end plates. I'm just gonna puke up some names on here. Hammer mid plates, barf up on the screen. Let's go ahead and merge all of our koi boys down. So merge down, always okay. We'll try not to F that up. Merge down, merge down, merge down, merge down, merge down. All right, and then we can just call them kois, because the plural of kois is obviously kois. So we got all of our kois here. Beautiful little kois. Our koi boys, as we will now call them. Mannequin, sure, mannequin, and then cylinder garbo. All right, guys, that's everything. We named it. We did it, guys. All right, that was a fun stream. We'll see you in the next one. No, I'm just kidding. Let me save that real quick. So save that as a new file here. I'm definitely fans of the TMNT, the new episode, so the 2012 series just ended, and 2003 had some Anthro Samurais in it as well. That's pretty rad. I have not seen that series. I think the Hammer won a smash. Call him Joe, or Jojo. Jojo O'Kiff. Not familiar with what that is. Raphael, what's going on, man? Welcome to the stream. I think we are good to go. So unfortunately, because Transpose Master already failed once, I'm 99% sure if I try this again, it will not work. I did save this file, so if this crashes, so sorry, an unrecoverable error has occurred. So goodbye, ZBrush. see you later. See you in the next life. So unfortunately, what happened there was ZBrush, or not ZBrush, but the transpose master crashed on having multiple subtools with the same name, and then attempting essentially the way these tools here in the Z plugin work. If it fails once, you're gonna have to restart the software to get it to work, again. So I went ahead and just did that. I knew it wouldn't work. Like I said, I was 99% sure, but I just wanted to at least show that example so that you guys know in the future, if you're experiencing some issues, just restart the software and go from there. So now we've renamed everything. Our top subtool is not head, just because the way subtool saving works. So transpose master. Everybody cross your fingers. T-pose mesh. It's gonna run through all these. Hopefully, I didn't name something the same. It's almost likely that there's like one thing in here that I did just because I was going through it so quick. But if we can get lucky, we can get through all these and see where we end up. Let's see here. ZBrush wanna die? Poor guy. Oh, yeah, that's true. ZBrush likes to die on occasion. Let me pop open this real quick just so I have my stream chat off to the side. After that's done updating, we're still going through the transpose master here, but hey, it looks like it ended up working just fine. Now I can have my chat open here and also be able to pop up some other stuff on my other monitor so I don't have to keep jumping back and forth there. All right, so that's a successful T-pose. Hey, that's always good. Or hey, that's pretty good. You know, whichever you prefer. Let's grab our mannequin. So down here, I'm going to scroll down to our mannequin. I'm going to come back here. So this is important. So this T-pose mesh is named T-pose1_ Kumadori space 12. So what I can do here is I can append other objects to this subtool. And I don't know if a lot of people know this. I can append some stuff to my T-pose mesh. So we'll append the cylinder as well. So now I have my T-pose mesh here, but I also have some other subtools within this tool. And as long as at the end of this process I delete these subtools, I can T-pose back all my changes to my other mesh and everything should still work perfectly fine. I just need to make sure that I delete these and get rid of them before I do anything moving forward. I've never seen anyone actually talk about this. It's just kind of something that I discovered on my own. But yeah, it's very, very helpful. So let me see something here. So I cannot merge these together because this is a Z-sphere rig and this is geometry. So what I'm going to do here is attempt, and I say attempt because I'm not sure if I can, attempt to scale this down or possibly scale up this mesh. I'm trying to think, is there anything in this subtool that if I scaled up everything in it, we would screw something up? The only problem that I can think of with scaling up this Z tool mesh, all the entire tool here, is that if I want anything from a past, you know what, we're going to be posing anyway. F it. It doesn't matter. So let's just scale it up. My concern was that if I wanted to pull something from an old file, it would be at the wrong scale. This is 12 million polygons that I'm trying to scale at once here, so it's a little unresponsive. Even though we're dealing with a lot of low poly pieces here, there's still a lot of pieces, and some of this doesn't have subdiv levels. So here up on the hammer, down there on the legs, you can see some of that. So I'm just gonna try to get this at roughly the same scale. Obviously, the proportions for the mannequin, it was something I did really rough in 15 minutes, just looking at a couple images online and coming up with an idea. I have a feeling that some things are going to have to change for our pose as we move forward here, simply because of proportional scale, as well as sizing of the hammer and the way that the thickness of the neck, how much turn and tilt that's going to allow for. So we're going to have to figure it out as we go. It's going to be a work in progress, but I just wanted to get something in 3D with my mannequin. Again, that's a great way to just get a good idea of what you want to do, and I think we have that now. So let's do it. Let's move forward with this guy. If you import a T-pose object with the same name, it works fine if it is the same polygons. Yes. You can also do some tricks with renaming in here as well. Helped a lot when the program crashed or gave errors. So yeah, you can do some tricks in here. Let's go ahead and get to posing then. So let's start with our hammer and just move it and attempt to get it into position, get it at the correct angle that we're thinking here, and then move it out of the way. And I might even do another T-pose mesh just so that I can get rid of this hammer, so we're dealing with quite a bit less polygons. And I think that might be a good idea, because if we look at how bad this is lagging, I think you guys would agree that it's a lot nicer when you have something that's a little bit easier to work with. So we can just kind of rotate this. You know, this is when it all comes into, you know, are you ready to move forward? Because we don't have our symmetry plane anymore. Of course, we still have some local sim stuff that we can do, but when you're working at some weird angles, you can lose all that very quick. And I want to actually, like one of the things that I was thinking with this pose is that I would actually like the hammer. This is a little close to being perfectly parallel with the ground plane, so I would like to maybe raise that angle up a bit, which I did there just a tiny bit, just to kind of play with it, but I think it'll become more apparent as we get closer here. And again, some of this is high poly, some of it is low, as you can see here. I cannot turn on dynamic subdivision levels. It's just not going to work, and I think even if I could, I wouldn't want to, because the amount of lag that we would experience would just be detrimental to the software. I don't think it could do it. So let me try to just rotate that angle ever so little. So we're coming in here, swinging, thinking about, just trying to think about how you would try to level the face of that head. And I think I'm happy with that. So again here, what we want to do is, after we get that hammer into a position that we like, what we can do is delete and delete. And if you guys, I don't know if all of you are familiar with the T-pose mesh transpose master here, but it's just it's really a necessity, in my opinion, for this software. I'm so glad that it does exist. Just being able to have essentially a proxy mesh to make changes to, and then have all those cascade back to your subtools is just so very valuable. Let's see here. So tedious to rig this way. I usually rig in low poly, auto generate. Final model, high poly, low poly, for some reason, help. Or is it a bug? Is that the final model one? I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Maybe it makes the high poly look low poly for some reason. Help. And yeah, I'm not exactly sure what your issue is there. I think I would have to maybe see your file to get a better understanding. If you want to post it in our ZBrush community Discord, go ahead and do that. There's a link to, there's a ton of great people on here if you're not a part of that. I'm struggling to kind of understand your question without actually seeing your work. So if you want to post some images in the ZBrush Discord, I would be happy to check out what's going on there as well after the stream, as well as there's tons of people in there that are so very helpful, and I'm sure would love to help you as well. So please do post your work in there, and yeah, we can try to figure out what's going on. Got a nice little border around ZBrush. Let's fix that. So, if you saw there, all of our changes cascaded to our hammer here. So that's great. Transpose is working perfectly fine. Now that, you know, we've gone through and renamed everything, it looks like I do have a little bit of an error up here on our moon. Our geometry got a little whack. I must have done something while masking. So that's unfortunate, but you know what? I'm not afraid to just duplicate this piece, undo, and fix this manually. And just get it into position. Luckily it was something simple here. Nice and easy to correct. And I'll turn on transparent just so I can kind of line up this point here. Line up everything there. Try to get that in the middle a little bit. And then I'm just going to scale from this point. And I'm scaling from that point because I have it lined up everywhere else there, and it should line up decently well as I scale that. A little bit too big. I think that's close enough, so I can delete this geometry. Take a look back here, we'll turn off solo mode, and let's go ahead and move forward. All right. A quick save, and then let's keep bumping here. Ike Derp, welcome to the stream. Hello, how's it going? Let's see. It may be because I use smoothing while posing. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend using dynamic smooth when you're posing, just because it can be a little finicky depending on how many polys you're working with. So yeah, do definitely keep that in mind. Be careful of that. So transpose mesh right here. We'll pop on back into T-pose, and we can start posing this guy. And what do we got? We got an error. Interface. Saying that there's an error with the subtool name again. So maybe we just got lucky there on the last one. Let me turn off auto collapse so I can actually see. I don't think we have two tools that are the same name off the top of my head. It might have been a fluke that it worked at the same time, or it might not have been, but it's very possible that I named something the same. I was thinking maybe it was something to do with the new geometry here. It doesn't look like it though. Yeah, I'm not positive. Let's do a save and restart ZBrush, and we'll see if the problem persists. And if it does, then we can do a closer inspection on our subtools. I have a feeling that was just a fluke. So let's restart here and see what we can do. Poop on out. Once we get into transpose with our mesh, I think we'll be good moving forward. We won't have any more little hiccups like that. Load in our 40 million polys, and then we can go. And just for reference here, if you guys, I mention this a lot, just because I know people are, a lot of people that kind of pop in here, pop out. A lot of you are kind of new, and just if you are new, and if you are saving your file, for example here, this is 40 million polygons. I am saving a subtool, and that subtool file is half a gigabyte, half a gig. But if I were to come in here and do a file, save as, and save the project file, that would be about 5 gigs for that file. So just keep that in mind. They tend to be about 10 times larger in size, so you do want to avoid that. If you don't know why you're saving the entire ZBrush project, then don't. If you have a specific reason for doing it though, go ahead and save the ZBrush project as a whole if you have a specific reason. But if not, always save over here on the right side as a subtool or as a Z tool. That is the preferred method for saving here in ZBrush. So it looks like we're good. It looks like it's going through everything perfectly fine. So like I said, I think it was just a fluke, a little bit of a hiccup. But we do still have a lot of geometry in here to kind of tweak and mess with. It might have been a good idea for me to project some subdivision levels onto this geometry down here. We will make do with what we have for the time being though, and keep pushing forward. It won't be a huge deal. So we got our mannequin, we have our bear. Let's append our mannequin, and we can simply use our solo hotkey of G to flip back and forth between that when we want to see it and when we don't. So where do we want to start? There's, I think, a lot of different methods for working like this. One way is to one person that I know and follow, she likes to start with posing the head and let the body kind of follow from there. I like to come in here with my transpose tool, and I like to start with just big kind of changes here that are going to take place. And I can kind of turn on transparency as well. So again, our proportions are really different here. So this is going to be a bit of a long process. We're not going to just pose this guy in this stream today. If we did, I would be super happy, but I don't see that happening. So what I am kind of looking for here is these big changes. So I'm looking at my mannequin, and what I'm probably going to do here is some tweaks to the shoulders to have a little bit of, excuse me, let's do this, a little bit of dichotomy in the way that these kind of tilt. So I'll probably end up changing the way that the shoulders are tilting here to have them kind of just have a little better balance there in the pose. We'll have to tweak a lot of things simply because of proportions, like I said earlier. So these are things to kind of keep in mind. And luckily we do have some of the geometry split at specific places. So for that, what I would like to do, because we are focusing on large changes here, is kind of try to group a lot of this together. And we're dealing with a lot of geometry here, so this can be tough. It can be tough to work with. But we're gonna make do and try to do our best. So let's try rotating one arm here, and then we can kind of cascade those changes down through our pose. So just rotating the arm, as you can see, it is a separate mesh. There are some things changing here that we will have to make occur later down the road. But again, we are looking for big changes. This is similar to, you know, when you're just starting out sculpting and blocking out in those initial phases and thinking about how you want to cascade those changes down that chain of primary, secondary, and tertiary forms. Similarly, here we're going to be working in that way. Anubis, you gotta go. Oh no! You're doing some animation stuff, it sounds like. What I should post. Animation channel, since it takes a lot, what should I post to satisfy our abusive YouTube? I'm not sure. Whatever kind of work you want to do, man. Whatever you want to create. That's kind of my philosophy. If you're more focused on, I don't look. I think that's a bad question. Simply because of the fact, oh, we only have 2 million polys here. That's pretty nice. I didn't know that. I think that might be the wrong way to look at it. Simply because I don't think you should be worried about the YouTube algorithm so much in getting your content seen, more so as just create content that you like. I like working on this model, and I like streaming and having you guys come and ask questions, and if I can help in some way or another, that's awesome. I get to work and have fun. I call ZBrush a game, right? I like to play ZBrush. So maybe try to put it in that perspective a little bit more. Do what you love, and try to think about it in that way. And if you do what you love, you're going to create content that you like, and you're going to create content that other people like. And don't so much sweat the YouTube's algorithms and all that. I have no, like somebody was asking, oh, I don't get notifications from your YouTube channel. I'm like, I don't know how that works. Sorry. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. Try to look at it as create what you love, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And I think you'll be a lot better off for it. So that's my little tidbit, my advice. This arm looks so derpy. Your samurai bear is pretty cool. Hope the rigging isn't too much of a hassle. Thanks, Plum Tuckered Out. Appreciate it. Keep up the great work. Excited face. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm hoping to be able to 3D get this guy to a point of 3D printing once we, get into posing and go through the process of getting him print ready. That'll be a lot of fun. And maybe I can put it on Shapeways. That's probably what I'm going to do it through. And get some like full color sandstone prints, and I'll make it available if anybody else wants one of those as well. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to get one of these guys on my desk. I think it'd be really cool to have a samurai bear boy on hanging out on my desk at all times. I think it's cool to also just have, you work on a character for, let's say, a month or something like that. And it's nice to have, when you're working in the digital space, it's hard to have something finished, have something to show for that. It's all digital. You have some nice renders, stuff like that. But it's cool, I think, to have something on your desk, and it's like, man, I put so much work into this, and you guys have seen and been following along as we work on this character, and I think it's just really cool to be able to have that all that time and effort and all that kind of conglomerate into a physical object that I can have on my desk and be like, maybe it can always be better, right? Art's never never finished. It's just abandoned, and that's true for a lot of things. But I think it's really cool to be proud of something in a way that's, oh, it's perfect, it's great, I love it, I'm so proud. Not in that way, but in the way of I'm proud of the work that I did here and the experience that I gained while kind of following along on this journey, and I'm proud of that. And I think that's something that you should be proud of, because hitting those milestones is really important for not getting burnt out. And keeping that in mind, let's try not to get burnt out on our bear boy. Let's try to keep going here. I just went ahead and polygrouped all that. I'm gonna do the same thing for this arm with that quick save. Ooh, our preferences changed because we restarted. Let's come in here and fix that. Ba-boom. There we go. I'm gonna turn on double as well. Always like to see those backside facing polys, please. And I just want to polygroup all of this. So again, remember we're looking for those big shape changes here. Come in here. I'm using the wrong selection tool for selecting polygroups. It makes it a little bit hard, but I think we're good there. So these arms are so just very, very big and very thick. It's going to be tough to get that pose with the arms kind of flowing back here, right? But I think, like I said, the pose is going to need some work, but I think we can find some creative solutions for how we can make up for some of those differences. And we can get there. So again, we'll have to do some tweaking on pieces and geometry here, of course. I always expected that, but just kind of keeping all this in mind as we move forward. And it might be a good idea to also come on through here and connect our head and body. But, I'm not a fan of connecting these just yet, because once I start twisting, we're going to get a lot of torque in there, and our geometry might be better off if we keep it separate. So let's keep it separate for the time being, and we'll play with it. So just finding a nice pivot point in here for our head, right down the center. Find that center line, find the center line of the neck from that position there, and get a rotation. So the bear is kind of coming in here, and he's looking forward, right? He's looking forward, his arms are back, and he's kind of really leaning into what this strike is going to be. So we can look back at our mannequin. So if we can get that feeling, and I think we can even do some more stuff with tilting this to like really kind of give that exaggeration of like leaning into this strike. So I think, I can't just rotate this whole thing easily off the top of my head yeah. So just like really getting that lean in, arms back, like it has this sense of motion there for sure as he's kind of moving forward so quick that his arms are back and then will flow through. So let's kind of, I have to think about, there's so much to think about while doing this. There really is. It's a lot of, I'm moving the arms somewhat what might look willy-nilly, but I am going to, go back through and thinking about the muscle connection points here. So like the deltoids, the deltoids have a lot of rotation to them, but obviously we end up with some gaps in here. So we're going to have to correct a lot of this stuff. But again, those big blocky moves and changes in the beginning are going to let you know what works with your character and what doesn't. So next up, let's get a little head tilt here. I'm going to rotate from the same position can. Just get a little bit of head tilt in here. And you can see that the geometry of the traps here is getting this really bad turn in it. That's fine. I can fix that with a move brush in a few seconds. So I'm not worried about this kind of stuff so much as I am, again, those big changes in this early stage of posing here. I'm a helicopter away. Helicopter fly away. All right, I dig it. Let's take a look at the legs now. As we go through here, it's gonna become apparent what can and what can't happen with some twisting, as we have some hard armor pieces. So it might be a little difficult to create the twist in the torso that maybe we want, but we can see what we can do. In terms of rotation, finding a good place here. So we can go back to our mannequin. Think about how he's lifting up his leg and he's stepping into this strike. Do a little bit of, oh, I do have transparency on, just not showing through. Oh, I have to turn it on, of course. And of course, again, limitations of the proportions of our character, armor, and all that are going to be an issue here. So let me hide some stuff, and let's just mask this off completely. Let's try this. I am going to, whoops, give me that piece as well. So I'm going to polygroup that piece, and I'm going to polygroup that piece so it's all solid. And now I can just kind of control click on that and adjust it as I see fit. And again, you know, you're seeing some geometry kind of popping through there. Not a huge deal. We can tweak that. Tweak the pants to maybe come out a little bit more and have the leg, the shin there, not extrude quite so much. And I want to give a little bit more rotate to that. And here. Try to straighten that line out a bit up through the leg. Okay, and for this leg over here, pretty much the same process, but I'm just kind of rotating it from the hip out. And I would like to actually blarg, maybe polygroup all these together to make these a little bit easier to select as well. A little bit frustrating. All right, so come on through here. If we can get the camera to obey, and rotate properly. Rotate up from the hip. And just based on the stance that we had here previously, we have a little bit of a bend there that we want to straighten out. Whoops. Careful there with your polygroup selection. And we can give a little bit of a bend here like we have in our pose. And we can try to exaggerate that a little bit more. Leg is going back a little bit as he steps in here. We can maybe try to do the same thing. I can try to control click to kind of get that mask to flow up through there a little bit better. But we can see how that works. Again, proportionally, our character is different, so we're going to have to mess with that. as well as obviously now we have some geometry that's kind of not working out so well with our piece. So we can try to tweak some of this. I guess we can just polygroup. What I think would be a good idea is just to do this, so that I can kind of select these and work with them individually. Focus on these big shapes. Some things might look messy right now, but our idea and having that pose is still kind of sticking through here. So I think that's fine. We could even, since these are segmented, we could even have rotations occur at the segmented links, so down through there, and having that interact with the leg in maybe a little bit more of a believable way. So I think maybe that's a good idea for here. So let's do an auto groups, and we'll mess with our selections here. So we'll go ahead and hide all these extra pieces and get through to adding some tilt here. A lot of this geometry I'm probably just going to delete. I had it there as a placeholder and I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do with it at the time, to be completely honest. But now I think I might want to delete it. We'll see probably what happens when we get into the 3D printing phase, but yeah, we'll see when we get there. Alright, so doing some rotation here. And pretty simple. Can do some rotation to those outside pieces as well. Use my pen here for a little bit better accuracy there. And let's hide these middle pieces. And again, the selection tool that I'm using, I can switch to select rectangle, and it'll make it a lot easier for getting rid of these pieces. The select lasso wants to be a little bit of a butt and essentially try to select edge loops. So it can be a little frustrating when you're trying to deal with that. So from here, I do like my select lasso tool though, in general, over most of the other selection tools. Playing with how this will interlock here. I can maybe even add some stretching, but for the most part, I'm going to try to rotate this a little bit better there. So it's still tied on, but able to not deform too much, simply because it is what a hard bamboo piece, I believe, of armor. So we don't want that to change too much, but in shape. So I could, do some stretching here and kind of cheat it a little bit, and nobody would be the wiser for it. But at the same time, I just want to be aware that what pieces are flexible and what is not. So in general, when I'm posing something like this, just kind of keeping that in mind helps to add to the believability of your character. And if you're taking something like, these hard bamboo pieces and you're flexing them all over the place and bending them and twisting them, well, all of a sudden, those pieces look quite a bit less like hard bamboo pieces of armor. And no matter what material or texture you add to them, that is always going to be the case. So again, these things, these small changes and decisions do definitely cascade down through your other stages of work as you go through here. For the body, so I have like some scrunch going on here, some a little bit of scrunch forward in the chest, as he's kind of like really leaning into this. We'll have to figure out how much of that we can actually do here with the armor. It might be more so leaning forward at the hips, and from there giving it that leaning forward pose, like he's leaning into his attack. So yeah, I'm not sure. This is just kind of all what's going through my head as I try to you know, think about all these things as we go forward, because there's a lot to think about, a lot you don't want to screw up, a lot of hard work that we did in creating these pieces of armor that now comes time where, you know, it's pretty easy to kind of F things up. So let's try not to do that as much as possible. All right, so with this armor plate over here, let's see. Let's go ahead and head on back and do an auto groups, and I want to rotate everything over here. And I just went back and masked everything off so that when I go back, I'm going to have this free to rotate. So there we go. For this piece, it is on top of the legs, or I'm sorry, it needs to be on top of the legs, the leg there, but I'll add some tweaking. I think it's going to be easier to work with that separately than all of this together. So I can start to rotate that piece out, and I can probably deform the pants around that, you know, since the pants are quite a bit more soft than what this armor would be. And then I can come through here and tweak that top piece. Mask that out. Try to move this in. And we'll rotate from this back corner. I'm going to try to not flex, but move this piece here as well. Let me still just because we're under 3 million polys, there's a lot of pieces here, so it gets tough to work with either way, but I want to be in control of every single piece here. Okay, and then tweaking this piece to kind of follow that form. Try to even it out a little bit. So let's come in here and grab onto these guys. And we're grabbing a lot of junk that we don't want as well. That's okay. Get rid of all of that. And that as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna polygroup, well, yeah, let's polygroup all that. Let's start here. And I just want to do a little bit. I don't think I want to mess with this bottom piece at all, so actually that's my fault there. So I'll come on through here and just polygroup this piece, and we'll do this instead. Get a little bit of rotation in there. Try to flatten that out, and I'll tweak that end piece as well, as I'm thinking about how that would interact there. This front one's going to be a little bit more tough. I'll probably swing it off to the left side here as well a little bit, just because I think with the momentum of his leg kind of coming up, it's going to push that out of the way, as well as, you know, obviously have to lift up here to make room for the leg pushing up under it like a hatch. So trying to think about that as well. The force that's going into this motion, would it cause these pieces to, you know, swing out? Is he raising his leg quickly for this strike? Probably. So that's some stuff to keep in mind as well. I don't have an exact reference for this pose of someone, you know, wearing this armor, doing exactly what I am attempting to intend for this character. So it's a lot of problem solving in all actuality, as I try to figure out, again, how that motion would actually work if someone were to raise their leg, how the armor would interact, where the armor could flex. Just a lot of garbage. A lot of garbage to think about while you're doing this. And you know, a lot of that early stuff is really hard when you're trying to think about design and interest. But this stuff, I think it can be really fun. I think it can be really fun to kind of try to work around posing and think about how these things would work in reality. It can be really hard though too, and you don't kind of, it's tough to maybe, you know, turn on some music or a podcast and zone out and do some of this, because you do want it to end up really good, because you're kind of, you know, you built the cake and now you're somewhat decorating it in a way where just a bland old cake, our T-pose character, looks a little boring. But now that we're starting to add some character through pose and everything, that's when, you know, everything's gonna start coming together. So it's really important to, you know, not waste all that hard work that we've already done. And it would be very sad to have done all of that for nothing. So I definitely, you know, that wasn't my intention. I wanna make something really cool here. I'm gonna try to keep going. Looking at the arms, I'm thinking we might want to just completely change the pose and maybe do bent elbows, simply because armor might get in the way. This was an issue that I was thinking about later, or I'm sorry, much earlier in the process, about how high can I lift the arms with the armor that he is wearing. What is his range of motion here? Can he lift his arms 90 degrees? Can he lift them above 90 degrees? Or would this armor interfere with these pieces covering his traps? And just kind of looking here, we're at about, you know, a little over a 45 degree angle with the body, so maybe that's about 55 degrees. And just because of the angle that they're at, they're kind of clipping in there already. So it's, you know, it's tough to say right now, because that's not exactly how I can tweak a lot of this armor to make it kind of act like it's interacting and pushing against each other. But at the same time, is there anything that I can do here to maybe lessen the detriment of of collisions, how many collisions are occurring, because I don't want to just F everything up there. So maybe having some bend to the bows would be for the best. So let's see here. Just doing a really, really hard rotation there along that poly loop. I would also like to do some twisting on the arm, which takes place, you know, the bicep is gonna twist a little bit here, but I think more so that's gonna take place under a lot of this. So let's try to get a good selection here. I'm gonna try to follow this edge loop. I don't want the deltoid to stretch too much, but I want to get a little bit of stretch in there. So just thinking about the muscles and how I want those to kind of twist. So I'm just going to do one light tap there, control tap, to blur my mask a little, and try to line up my transpose tool here and see if I can get a nice rotation along here. I'm just going to control tap one more time, trying to be careful, trying to think about this line for the hammer. Think about how that's going to work. So the more twist I can get in here, I think the better. But again, I'm most definitely going to have to do some sculpting and tweaking in here to make some things look a little bit better and more natural. We're making pretty basic changes there. So I think I'm happy with that change, at least for the time being. So let's come on in here and try to get another clean selection along that elbow. And I'm just using the selection tool so that I can see a little bit easier. And I'm gonna do a little bit of a softer selection since the other one was so hard. Those poly loops are getting a little tight there for what I want. Try to line up my transpose master to where I want that to rotate from, and give it a little bit more tweak. And I think that arm as a whole might need to come up a little bit more. It's a little bit hard to imagine where that hammer is without actually seeing it. I could have penned in here real quick a cylinder. It might be helpful, so we can append this long cylinder piece. And maybe not align that so much with the mannequin, more so with our bear here. And at the angle we had it, that arm I think is going to have to come way back, and or our body is going to have to twist. And it's probably going to be a combination of those things, just because our guy's just so gosh darn thick. He's a thick boy. So let's try this. A lot of garbage geometry in here. Try to select all that. A lot of pieces. Our guy's at pretty close to 100 just different subtools, so again, it can get just kind of overwhelming to work with all this. Make sure there's no floating garbage there, because I was being a little haphazard with my selection. And we can line this up. Now if I knew exactly what my pose was going to be and end on, and I had just a really good pose for this character in these proportions, I'd probably you know, be a lot more akin to the idea of doing some form of rigging to this character. And you guys might be you guys might like that idea a bit more as well. But just the way that this process is, I don't know for these proportions specifically what that's going to end up looking like. So I don't think I can, you know, just justify creating spending all that time creating a rig when I have no idea what all's gonna move here. So I don't think it's worth creating a rig for a character that's meant to be posed and only be posed once and be sculpted upon. And a little bit more rotation along this arm. I think it's gonna have to be, you know, over that 90-degree crux, so up through here, and when I do that I'm gonna have to change the way my bicep shape is happening there, the way it's bulging out, so we're gonna have to change some things, of course, but all of this is to be expected. You know, when you pose, you can't just think, oh, well, the arm moves this way, it bends here at the elbow. That's a very basic way to kind of look at all this. I have to understand what happens when the elbow bends like that. And we're going to try to represent that later down the road after we get our most basic pose down. From there, we can look at these secondary and tertiary changes that would be happening. So as I rotate this, you know, that's not what we want, but at least for the time being, it might be helpful to have just that rotation and have maybe we do want a bit more harder of an elbow there. So making a really bad kind of stretch there. I mean, of course this is bad, but you know, we need to get to that final position somehow. And you know, we were talking about animation earlier, and there's a few kind of ideas and processes for main animation, but one of those is getting your key poses down and then interpolating between those frames, which is, you know, personally how I prefer to work when sculpting. I prefer to be able to get those key poses, those big shape changes first, and then interpolate the changes that would occur in between those. And same process here with posing and animating and all of this. So there's a lot of school of thoughts on it. At the end of the day, it's what works best for you, I think, and whatever that is. So I don't know if there's, depending on the project, there might be one better way to always do it, but I prefer to, I prefer to do it this way because I've had experience doing this, and I think this is a pretty good way of going about things for stuff that's just going to be posed a singular time. It is involved. It does take a good amount of time to do, but you know what? So does, try to rotate that a little bit better. So does creating a rig. So does a lot of those other processes. So again, to each their own, whatever you like doing. Find your thing, whoops, and practice it. Get better at it. Some wonkiness here. I have to adjust that. Try to rotate that wrist. Fix that angle. I'm gonna have to rotate my forearm as well. When you rotate your wrist, you know, your radius and ulna twist together. The forearm is one of the most complex parts of the body, in my opinion, and just getting that to work can be very, very hard. So I'm gonna try to get a little bit of torque happening in those parts now, and see what we can do here. So I'm gonna mask all of this, mask everything, have just the forearm here, and a little bit of a mask in there. So if you're not familiar with how the forearm works, like I just described, the two bones kind of twisting around each other, it's really interesting. There's some really cool, probably animated GIFs that you can find online of some examples, but again, it's a complex part of the body, and getting, just being able to represent that accurately. I'm gonna have to sculpt over this and make some changes, you know, manually, but being able to represent that accurately is just really tough. So even with something that is stylized like this, I want stylized accuracy and exaggeration. And if I'm creating a form and somebody says that looks weird, you know, I haven't done my job correct. I haven't done my job very well. All right, so I say we look at posing this other arm on the other side a little bit, so that we can kind of fit this cylinder in there a little bit better. I would also like to just do some general, a little bit more rotation. Kind of want that front leg facing me, so I could even rotate from that foot position. I'm doing this just from the perspective of my camera, so that I have an idea of what I'm looking at. And coming in here, so let's see. So our angle, our arms are just so very long. Excuse me. Our arms are just so very long that we're getting some differences between the pose that our mannequin can accurately do and what we can accurately replicate from those. So do remember though that, again, that was something that I did in like 15 minutes, and it wasn't accurately proportioned for our bear, but I did want to just get an idea of what I was looking for and be able to reference that while I work. And I think that's what they're really good for, those mannequins. You can create an entire scene with them to get an idea. So you can like import multiple mannequins. You can create your own out of Z-spheres. You can just create an entire scene to get an idea for composition of what you want to do. And I think that's what they're really good for. It's just kind of being able to brainstorm ideas as you work. And maybe have a little bit of a better idea before you completely dive headlong into something, which is, you know, what I like to do, and then we'll figure out the rest later. But no, I think having a strong idea from the beginning is absolutely very, very helpful. So let's grab our cylinder here. Let's take a look at, ooh, that's a pretty one. This is a fun one, right? You guys seen this one before? It's a pretty rare glitch that happens in ZBrush. I'm not sure if it's ever happened on stream here before, but it's a fun one. It's a good time. We can mess around with it. You guys know it? And we can keep playing with it. We can do all sorts of goodies. Yeah, I'm not sure what causes this one, but I've had it happen from time to time. So if this is your first time seeing it, count yourself lucky. It doesn't happen very often. It'll stop eventually, but just by moving my camera, I can get that to stop. But it is, you know, it's a fun one. It's a fun one to check out. So having a grip now. Previously, I had the grip more central, the hands closer together. But now I'm leaning towards, you know, having one closer to the bottom and one at the top to maybe get that leverage of the swing with this big hefty hammer. If you're holding them both more towards the bottom, it's going to be pretty heavy, even for our big bear boy here. So we can play around with that, I think. And in all honesty, what I recommend doing if you're trying to pose a character, specifically one that's bipedal, maybe even one that's not, is to try to act it out yourself physically and try to get an idea of what your arms and muscles are doing. So if you can grab a prop of, this obviously isn't long enough, but maybe I could go like buy a big wrapping paper roll or something like that, or go find one somewhere if you have one in your house. That's the first thing that comes to mind for that shape. And kind of act out this pose yourself. And I'll do the same thing. We won't do it on stream, but maybe we will. Maybe we will. I don't know if I have any wrapping paper, but just trying to figure out and like go through the motion of what your character is doing. So my character is being, it's a pause in time of this swipe that he's taking with this hammer, this big stroke. And we're kind of taking a snapshot of that and go through the motions of doing that actual action and do it a few times to figure out those again, how your arms and legs and stuff are positioned. And even if you have a friend, it's great if you can get them to record you or take pictures of you doing this if you're not too shy. It's very, very helpful to see this because you pick up on a lot of really cool stuff. And again, having really good reference enables you to have better work. So it's important to have good reference, and don't forget that your own body, is a great reference for yourself. A lot of people, you know, get caught up looking online for like, I think somebody in our last stream was saying, I can't find any good reference images of a hand to sculpt. And I'm like, just use your own hand, man. That's what I do. Like if I'm sculpting a hand, I just look at my own hand. And sometimes that gets a little tough while I'm trying to do keyboard shortcuts and stuff. So I just take pictures of my hand and then throw them up in Photoshop or whatever and reference those. It can be very helpful. Unless you got like really weird hands, maybe not. But yeah, just don't forget that use what you have. You have some great tools given to you, and use them. Try to find out what works for you. So I think I want to this time get rotation this way for his left arm. So we rotated his right arm out and in. He's going to be holding the hammer like this, and this one needs to be rotated in towards the body, and maybe bend the elbow a little bit in this way. So following the same rotation, but opposite because it's on the other arm, and try to get that to make a little bit more sense here. So I can mask this off and create a polygroup of that arm, and try to do the same thing we did last time, which was try to get a decent enough mask in here that we're not creating too many problems for ourselves down the road. And we want to grab this hand because we need him masked off. We need that to rotate as well. And just a single, maybe two mask blurring clicks through there. And try to follow the line of the arm so that I can rotate concentrically around this point. And if I want, I can turn on my cylinder here and get a maybe better idea of where I need this to go. I'm going to be rotating the wrist as well, which should help in this too. And again, thinking about your own body. A lot of people, you know, get hung up on anatomy. And, you know, this is a stylized thing, but it still does have to kind of follow these rules and not look so unbelievable that just anybody can pick up on it. And just keep in mind that anatomy is a tool, and you're never going to know every single thing about the human form, which is why reference is so very important. So just don't get too hung up on spending, you know, so much time studying anatomy versus actually kind of putting it into practice and trying to look at reference and understand what kind of forms you're seeing and going from there. Not to say that you shouldn't practice anatomy. You absolutely should. But just focusing more on, I think the actual application of those things is a little bit more important to me, just because of the fact that you're going to be studying anatomy while you're working. Like, if I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, the bicep and the deltoid, I have a pretty good understanding of how those interact together. And the bicep tucks up under towards the notch there. And I don't want the form of the bicep going over the deltoid. That would look very, very wrong. But as I'm twisting in here, how much twist is actually happening up towards here. And I again use my own body and try to maybe look in the mirror at that. Look at some reference images for it as well, and just try to figure out those things. And by doing that, I am practicing, you know, anatomy. I'm learning new things and being able to work from there. So I'm gonna widen this out a little bit, trying to get rid of as much garbage collision as we have here. It can be tough. We got a lot of stuff working together, and I want to be careful that I don't have too much colliding. This is fine. This gap is fine. That's not a big deal. We can fix that. We can close that hole and stretch our deltoid and stretch geometry and fix this up. That's not the end of the world. I'm more worried about this front view right now and how this needs to interact and maybe be widened out a little bit for the width of the shoulders. And this is also, you know, important for knowing how the pectoral muscle, I think the pec has like 4 heads, and how those all kind of twist up and attach onto your humerus and go up under your deltoid and all this. So it is, again, it's important to know and study anatomy, but you'll find more purpose in your study if it's specifically for something that you're looking for at that moment in time, I think. So let's try to rotate our hand through our wrist, obviously. And we'll just control click here to mask off our arm, and then do a quick swipe through there with our mask lasso. And that's a pretty clean selection. And let's rotate through here, and we'll add a little bit of a change of angle as well. Oh no, a little bit of a crash. See if we can get a recovered file here. Hopefully we can get that back. let that load, and we'll see if we can fix that. So when ZBrush crashes, it's going to say, okay, it was terminated, and we didn't want it to. That's fine. So you got a couple recovered files in here, and I can't tell where this is. So I'm gonna double click this one first and try to load this, because this is the ZBrush project file, and this will have the most amount of data in it, most amount of information for everything in here. And this is actually pretty good. This is right where we left off. And occasionally you won't get that ZBrush project file, and that can be a little scary. But we do have the recovered Z tool in here, and that will have all of the subtools in here. And what I can do is I might have to rename this. I'm not entirely positive, but we're gonna have to fix it to get Transpose Master to work. And what we're gonna want to do is maybe rename that to it will be Kumadori _12, and it'll be like T-pose mesh 1 or something, or it'll be something along those lines. I can do a re-T-pose, and we can figure out what that'll be here in a little bit. But it can be a little scary when stuff crashes, but just know that ZBrush does a fairly good job with its quick save feature of hooking you up, giving you that bro fist bump, and not letting you lose too much. But again, we might have to do a little bit of a, we'll see when we T-pose back through, but we might have to do a little bit of a trick to get it to work for us. And I am going to attempt to just soften this mask all the way up through the forearm a little bit more. I want to get that forearm rotation in with this wrist rotation, just to have it be more accurate. And a little bit of a bend in the elbow and a little bit of straightening in the wrist, and I think we'll be on our way here. Whoops, wrong mask tool. My hotkeys aren't working right now, and if you ever get in a place where that's happening, just come up into Preferences, Config, and Restore Custom User Interface. So now my hotkeys work just fine. And I can come on through here and rotate specifically at the wrist. And try to straighten out this hand. And we can try to get a little bit of a bend in the elbow again. So mask that off. Try to get a little bit of a better selection there, a little bit more clean. And try to do some rotation here. Alright, so we can kind of see how this is starting to come together a little bit better. Maybe a little bit of a softening here, the rotation, just so it's not such a hard transition. And again, I'm going to have to do some tweaking, some sculpt over to you know, soften some forms that are transitioning a little too hard, and hardening some transitions like the elbow that are a little bit too soft. Which you can see we got some hard poly loops pushed down here so that we can kind of have a little bit of that form transition through. But you know, a lot of that's really tough to get. So you can see here that we got some weird kind of tweaking going on here, but again, we're going to be fixing all of this as well. It's a work in progress, absolutely. All right, so I'm thinking let's try to fix our T-pose and try to get that information to cascade back up through our subtool list, just because we did crash and we don't want to move too far forward without doing that, fixing that big problem first. And then from there, I think I'm gonna call the stream for the day and go grab some foods before I work on some more stuff, because I'm dying right now. I need some foods. All right, so let's see here. Like we said, we want to get rid of our mannequin, our cylinder piece here, and I'm just going to perform a quick save in general, just so we're fine. And I am going to say transpose master T-pose subtool and see if we can get this to cascade back to our tools without making any name changes. And it looks like it froze. It looks like it's working, is what I was going to say. And I think it is. I think it is working. The problem is that, you know, there's so many polygons there. We're cascading up from about 2.5 million polys, and we're cascading all those changes to 40 million polygons. And when that happens, it has to step through the subdivision levels of all of those pieces. And you can see actually here it's starting to do it. So it's working out pretty well. So that's awesome. Hey, we didn't even have to make the name change. So ZBrush, good on you for you know, not being quite as crap as everybody thinks you are. I love you, ZBrush. I love you still, don't worry. So that'll go through all my subtools, making all those changes. And I can even, all my Boolean pieces, everything is going through here. And what I like to do is I kind of like to jump back and forth between having my subtools and working in this T-pose state. If I need to make like a bigger rotation of these arm and all this armor, we're going to do that in T-pose. But if there's some minor tweaks to now just the arm, it's going to be a lot easier for me to have my subdivision levels and work through on sculpting that arm piece back on up. So, oh, there's no cylinder. That's fine. There wasn't supposed to be. Awesome. So that worked out pretty well. Obviously, you know, again, we tried to get that hard transition on this arm as an example, and we still have our symmetry turned on. So after doing this, I'm going to have to turn all my symmetry positions off, but we do, just to show this, live Boolean, have all those live Boolean pieces. I didn't want to convert those to actual geometry just yet, because it can, it's going to have to solidify that geometry, and it's no longer going to be this nice, clean topology that we have here. So that's going to be a little bit harder to work with if I do that. So I'm trying to keep things easy to work with, and we'll continue to work on this guy moving forward in the stream tomorrow. So hope to see you guys tomorrow in the live stream. Come on in with some questions and everything else. It'll be a little bit earlier tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. So check out my Facebook or Twitter, or wherever you want to follow me. I got all the social medias, and I'll make a post on there right before I go live, and you guys can come hang out and again ask questions or just say hi, whatever you want to do. All right, guys. Well, we'll work more on him and his pose in the next stream, and I'll try to get some more done in between till then. So I'll see you guys then. All right, bye now.